you for all our many blessings, first and foremost and up front. Lord, thank you for the air that fills our lungs, for that means that we have purpose to serve in you. Lord, we pray for those who will serve and those who are serving now and those who have served, Lord, across our state and our nation. We just ask you to be with these and their families and all things that they do and all the things they're confronted with. Lord, we just ask you to lead us in discernment mind as we go through the business today, that we serve your will. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
You have any other prayers you want to, while we stretch this out a little bit? No.
Now, gather together, we're going to sing Amazing Grace.
No. Hey, Senator Walker, I know that we're going to get you going first, but instead of not using all of our time as efficiently as we should have, I'm going to have our guest speaker come forward first and start then, because it's information only, and then we're going to go to you when we get a quorum, okay? Thank you. So we're going to deviate from the agenda for a little bit. So Drew and Derek, if y'all would come forward. And y'all are back off again. I'm sorry. Great, though. I appreciate that flexibility there. Yeah. Okay, Senator Walker, we can't wait on you anymore. You're up.
Right here, okay.
Please.
Good morning. It's good to see everybody on a beautiful Monday morning. Thank you for allowing me to present this bill to you, Colonel. A number of us, or Senator Kirkpatrick, a number of us in the Senate have been serving on a Georgia Joint Defense Commission. We've been actively meeting for about 2 years now, and every meeting, practically every meeting, the issue of occupational licensing comes up, and the Department of Defense tells us that that Georgia's not doing a good job with regard to recognizing military spouses licensed from another state. And that's sort of what has got me interested in this topic, or that is what has got me interested in this topic. And I'm also involved with the 21st Century Partnership, which advocates for Robins Air Force Base, and this continues to be an issue with them. So that's what, got me involved with the licensing issue. And so I've kind of taken that and sort of also everywhere I go, just about business owners complain about labor shortages and workforce issues, and we hear that at the Capitol almost daily, and the governor's got a workforce initiative, and we're spending all kind of money with our technical colleges, et cetera. The truth of the matter is we're going to have, with all the economic success Georgia is having and all of these job announcements and expansions, we're going to have an influx of workers from outside of our state. Our growth and organic internal growth in population is not enough to keep up with the demand that we're seeing, fortunately, that we're seeing in Georgia. According to the Institute for Justice, Georgia has the 12th most burdensome occupational licensing regimen for lower income professions. The state requires on average more than $185 in fees, 464 days of education and experience, and about 2 exams. In most cases, Georgia refuses to recognize out-of-state licenses of people who relocate here, forcing them to begin the expensive and time-consuming licensing process anew. And meanwhile, we're facing all these workforce shortages. A few sectors in particular that are really hurting are first responders and medical professionals, and that's just Georgia has one of the worst nurses per capita ratios and physician to patient ratios. A 2018 report revealed that 64 counties in Georgia were without a single pediatrician, 79 had 0 OBGYNs, and 9 didn't have a medical doctor at all. And the situation really hasn't improved much since 2018. On the law enforcement front and firefighters, our counties and cities are struggling to fill the ranks of firefighters and EMTs and law enforcement personnel. So the workforce deficiencies are creating, public health and safety concerns, and it's restricts our ability for small businesses to grow and prosper. I decided, instead of just simply focusing on the military issue, to look at the overall occupational licensing issue and in light of the workforce shortages. So this is a broader bill than just strictly military spouse licensing. So I'm presenting Senate Bill 195, which is LC 520256. If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'll just kind of go through some of the highlights of the bill. And I know that this may be, there's going to be bureaucratic pushback, I realize, on this. And there's protecting our turf. There's some industries want barriers to entry to their industry because they don't want the competition. There's all kind of reasons and excuses not to recognize out-of-state licenses. So this is not going to be an easy lift, but I want to bring your attention to lines 24 through 27, where the bill defines what a license is, and in particular, it adds in on line 26 and 27 an occupational specialty certification or other document earned in the military. So for those exiting the military that have gotten a certification, let's say in heating and air or in dental hygiene, that would be recognized, if this bill were to pass, as a license. So that, I think, is real important language in the bill. We do have a lot of military, we have 9 military bases, so we have a lot of people that exit the military that end up staying in Georgia, and they are still young, still have a career ahead of them, and make great employees. And so this will recognize the experience they've gained in the military. In fact, we now have a tax break for military retirement to try to encourage these people to stay in Georgia. and become part of our economy and part of our communities. And we have spent a lot of money on with the Technical College System of Georgia to help with the Vector Centers, help these folks transition. So this recognizes their military experience and certification as a license. Then basically when you get down to what licenses would have to be recognized from other states or from military experience, you start on line 41. So an individual that holds a current and valid license to practice a profession, business, or trade issued by another state for an occupation with a similar scope of practice in this state. That's the first requirement. They've held such a license for at least a year. That's number 2. They are in good standing in the other state whose license, and their license hasn't been revoked, suspended, or surrendered because of misconduct. Number 3. Number 4, they do not have a complaint, allegation, or investigation pending. Number 5, they do not have a disqualifying criminal record as determined by the Professional Licensing Board or other board. Number 6, they pass any examination that may only be required, and only is key there, to demonstrate knowledge of state-specific, Georgia-specific laws and rules related to the practice of their profession. And then lastly, number 7, they pay all applicable fees to the licensing board. If they do all of those 7 things, if they meet those 7 requirements, this bill requires the licensing board to issue them an expedited license within 30 days. And everybody's going to say, well, we only meet quarterly, we only meet 3 times a year. That's not a valid excuse, in my opinion. That's not good enough. Meet monthly. If you have an application pending, have a Zoom meeting and act on it. It doesn't mention this in the bill, but I assume they could come up with a provisional license that they could issue quickly and then have their meeting later. But there's a way, I think, that they can accomplish this, and I say these professional licensing boards. All right, and then so then we want to take the rest of the, starting on line 60, we are dealing with occupations. Let's say a cosmetologist or a dental hygienist or something, anything. If you're coming from a state that does not require a license for that occupation, we also want to recognize their work experience and not require them to have to go through this average 464-day process to get licensed in Georgia. So we want to recognize their work experience, and that's where it starts on line 63. They work in a profession that, in a state that does not require a license, but they are doing a job that is similar scope of practice to the license they're applying for here. On line 67, they have to work at least 3 years in that occupation. Remember, on the person that was licensed, we only said a year. This would be 3 years. They have to still meet those. They have to meet the requirements under paragraphs 4 through 7 above. Don't have a complaint, don't have a criminal record, and they need to pass any exam specific to Georgia laws. And then they would then be eligible to get this expedited license if they meet all those criteria. And then the last part is, I know Senator Kirkpatrick has worked tirelessly on licensure compacts in the medical area, and line 76 and 77, we wanted to make sure we did not interfere with those state licensure compacts, which are important. And then line 83 through 88 just says the license under this code section are only valid in Georgia, and they're still subject to the laws of this state. It's under the jurisdiction of the Professional Licensing Board. So that's what it does, Mr. Chairman. I did have Senate research, and I'm happy I brought copies to share with you all of the licenses that are affected under Title 43. I think there are 42 of them, and I found them to be, some of them quite interesting. You have to have a license if you provide ignition interlock devices. You have to have a license if you're a junk dealer. They're just things that I didn't really know. If you're a dietitian, if you're a lactation consultant, if you're a librarian, you have to have a license in Georgia. It just goes on, to be honest with you. And we are going to have if you're a used watch dealer, you have to have a license. If you're a transient merchant, you have to have a license. And there may be good and valid reasons for all of these. I'm not trying, but it's just interesting. And we're going to look at that over the interim, I hope, and do some study on these. But that's all I have. Be happy to answer any questions.
I've got several questions here, but I'm going to take chairman's privilege, and I'm going to start with my own first.
Yes, sir.
How many professional license boards do we have in the state?
I assume, at least under the Secretary of State's purview, I assume, well, some of these maybe have moved out, but I think at least 42.
Okay, so that would be one of the things I don't understand why we're not looking at and incorporating with your legislation is how to cull some of these that I don't. If I've got to use Seiko watch that somebody's selling me, I'm not sure I need to have him licensed.
So I do have a study committee bill to study this over the interim, all of these various licensing boards, see where we can eliminate, streamline, that kind of thing.
Well, I like your bill, Senator. I'm trying to get you to go. I'm trying to get you to where, but there's some gaps in here that I'm seeing. Some of it's kind of pedantic. I think there's 14 installations across the state, not 9. But you talked about OBGYNs and pediatricians and gaps across how many of those are near military installations? How many of those counties?
I would think a good many.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If I would, Senator, research. Your research, right? Yeah. You can find that out for me. It's obviously known how many counties are OBGYN and pediatrician deserts. I want to know how many of those are around one of the military installations. There is some gaps in there where I can kind of see it. I mean, I'm going to use my own industry for an example. There is Georgia-specific law within construction that doesn't apply to Alabama, Oklahoma, Washington State. That if you have somebody with a GC license come in, they can take the test, but they've got to take the test with the Georgia law. Do you take that into account? Because the standards are different from state to state.
We are attempting to do that, yes, sir. So that is line 55 through 57. It's part of the 7 requirements to qualify for a expedited license.
And what happens if they come in within 30 days and they fail this because they haven't had a chance to go through all the Georgia laws that pertain to specific industry? Are they done for the year?
They don't get an expedited license. I don't know what the retest requirements are currently on that.
I think that.
And they don't have to apply for. They don't have to do it in 30 days. If they want to come in and study and wait, work here 6 months and then apply for a license, that'd be their option. But if they feel like they're prepared and knowledgeable and can pass the test, they would be qualified. That would be one of the 7 criteria to qualify for the expedited license.
I would like to have an or else or but in that area right there. If they do the expedited, we go through we create the venue the ability for them to do that expedited, and then they don't pass, I would like to have what happens then in here as well. And
Like they need to wait a certain amount of time? Is that what you're thinking?
they can't turn around and say, I want another expedited next week.
Yeah.
They are not eligible until the next, the next established meeting by this licensing board before they're eligible to try again, something along those lines. All right, I'm going to start. Senator McLaurin.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and good morning. I think the idea makes a lot of sense. I have questions about the scope of practice definition of line 34, 35. I was trying to grab you for a minute over there, but I know we didn't have much time before committee. The first question I've got, I really only have two. The first one is on line 35. You define scope of practice throughout the bill. This may be a little technical, as so and so and so in this state. But then later on down, let's call it line 42, for the first usage of that term, you're trying to identify, and I think what you're trying to identify is that the scope of practice in one state is comparable to the scope of practice here. But I'm worried if we're defining scope of practice as all of that on line 34 and 35 in this state, that narrows it to Georgia. That's, again, kind of just a syntax thing. You see what I'm getting at there? That if you take out in this state in the definition or make it generic, then that way when you use similar scope of practice as in this state in line 42, it can actually compare both. Does that sound all right to modify it that way? It's a friendly amendment.
I'm not quite following you, but that doesn't, I just don't quite follow you.
Okay, no worries. I mean, and that's for the Will Committee to consider later. I can bring that up at a later time. The other question I've got is a little more philosophical, I guess, about using scope of practice as the concept. My sense is that the reason we do expedited licensing is because we trust that whatever somebody's got going on in another state, that's good enough for Georgia. But I would question whether is the more accurate test of whether they fit our standards, whether not just that the work they're doing is similar, but that the licensing requirements that the other state has are comparable enough to the requirements we have for licensing here. Meaning, it's not just the definition of the way your work is defined, but also have they done what's necessary to get licensed in this state, notwithstanding that they were elsewhere. Does that?
Well, I'm intentionally trying to make this based on what they're actually doing in the scope of practice rather than some list of requirements in another state that may or may not be relevant to really doing the job. And I'm trying to get this to where pardon me, but a bureaucrat doesn't use, well, this state doesn't have, you don't have to have a purple tie over here, and we do. So no, that he or she doesn't. I'm trying to get away from legalistic, more approach to actual practically what are they doing.
Yeah. I think that you've done that, but I think you've also addressed his answer on line 43. The Professional License Board has it before you come with your specific occupation. They have a list. Each of them have their own list of other states that are compatible that have as rigorous or more rigorous even than ours, that they're accepted as transferable.
Well, I guess, and so, Mr. Chairman, my question is basically when they make that list, are they making it based on similarities in the actual work done between where they are and where we are, or are they basing it on, and to the Chairman's point, we might have a purple tie requirement another state doesn't have, and he's trying to move away from that. But I assume that some of the requirements in Georgia we have for licensing are more substantive than purple tie. We're just making sure that they've met that licensing requirement, even if the work itself is different, if that makes sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Okay, well, I can put the peace pipe down, and focus, yeah. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow you.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Okay. Senator Payne.
Thank you for bringing this bill. Is it not true that, nobody in the military really gets rich from doing the jobs they serve in the military?
I think you would know
Well, and many times you don't have control of your own destiny. And when you're in the military, you could be in Fort Hood, Texas, and since we have training facilities and structures in Georgia, you could come here for literally for months at a time, but you're bringing your family with you from Texas, and your spouse may have a license in Texas, but you're going to be here for months, but you can't go without that spouse's salary to put food on the table. So I think that this is a great idea in trying to make sure we expedite these, because they could only be in Georgia for a year, and they don't have control over that. If they're only here for a year, at least they need to be able to feed their family. So I think this is a good piece of legislation, and I want to thank you for bringing it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Mr. Chairman, most military or otherwise, most families can't afford to go without a paycheck for 90, 120 days waiting on a licensing board. It's just, it makes it tough.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. That's why I'm saying I want to get us to go, but I was trying to figure out who the second signer of your bill was, and then realized it's me. What I would almost, if we could have gone back in time, I would have had tiered sections, because OBGYN, I think, is a little bit more important than we have the certification for than that used watch seller that you were talking about a second ago. So, go through that list that you have and draw a line and go, anything up here that's imminent life, limb, or whatever, should be held at a different scrutiny than, I keep coming back to the watch guy because that was the one that was most absurd that you said. So that I wish we'd kind of done that. Senator Kirkpatrick.
Yeah, a couple questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I support what you're trying to do for our military and their spouses. That's super important, and you and I have both heard that over and over again. And I also am very in favor of the study committee that you're proposing to deal with some of the more absurd licensure things that we have coming up. I have a couple questions. One is on line 52, I wonder if you'd be open to, and I'll tell you, let me explain what I'm getting at first. We have all these compacts, but not all the states are in the compacts. And so we share data back and forth between the states that are in the compacts. But the states that are not in the compacts, we don't get any data from them other than the person, physician or whoever it is, signing an affidavit saying, no, I'm not a criminal. But we don't know, we don't have any way to double check that. So I was just wondering on line 52 if you'd be willing to consider adding something like, provided that our licensing boards may directly contact the licensing board in the other state for information.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so that's one thing, and I can ask Ledge Council to put that in an amendment if that would help. And then the other thing is, would you be open to, for the time being, until the study committee has met, limiting this to on line 40, licensed by endorsement to a military person or spouse?
I'd rather not, but if that's what it takes to keep this thing alive and knowing the time frame that we're under,
Yeah.
I'm pretty much at the committee's mercy and discretion. And
Yeah, I want to, like I said, I love the bill, but I want to make sure that we're addressing some of the stuff like this that has come up. And I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but every once in a while a bill will get to the floor and there'll be like 18 amendments that come to it that you're trying to figure out now, what does that bill actually say?
maybe did I see that?
I don't, Senator Kirkpatrick, have you ever seen one like that? Okay. And I don't want that to happen to it. So.
No, this would have been probably a good bill to have a hearing on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
But it's up to you, Mr. Chairman. Whatever you all think we need to do. I know this is not an easy issue. I'd love to keep it alive if possible, and the Secretary of State asked me Thursday could they meet with me on this, and I'd like to have that opportunity too. But I'm open to. I'm flexible. I don't have any choice but to be flexible right now.
Senator.
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd move a friendly amendment just to do a little bit of cleanup on the scope of practice definition that I think is fully in line with the author's intentions.
Okay. Before you make that amendment, can we get with Secretary Cook's office and see if we can, because instead of doing this hodgepodge here, I'd rather schedule another hasty committee meeting solely for this bill, but we can get together with you and incorporate it and let you have that chance to meet with the Secretary of State in the meantime, so that it's not just slammed when it comes there. But you've got my commitment that we'll move mountains to make sure that we have another committee meeting to get your bill voted upon. Is that fair?
Fair enough, yes, sir.
Okay, so with that being said, we are not going to take action on this bill today, but those of you that do have proposed adjustments, amendments, please get with the author, and then I'll let you know as soon as we got a date and time for that.
Sure. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Committee.
Good bill,
Appreciate it.
good bill. I want it to be successful.
You all maybe would like to have those. I found it pretty interesting.
Wednesday by 1, right?
All right.
I think it's 1. Yeah, that being said, hey, Senator Walker, I think it's Wednesday at 1 is when it has to be done by, out of committee.
I think it has to be reported out prior to gaveling in on Wednesday.
Okay, well, regardless, be prepared for an early morning on Wednesday, okay? If it, I'm playing with you. Go. No, we'll get it done.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, thanks. So next up is informational only. The reason I asked these gentlemen to come in with to talk about their program is during the summer, I sat on the homelessness issue. I am a veteran. This is the Veterans Military Affairs Homeland Security, so the two kind of fit together. So these two gentlemen here have a program that they're starting in Georgia, but you're going to try to expand it nationwide, from what I understand, right? To address part of the need. So please come up and talk completely and quickly, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senators, it's a pleasure to be here. Walking in here this morning, it reminded me of the good work that we're doing, knowing that 1 of 10 of these folks who are sleeping on the streets, in our streets, are veterans. We're here to talk to you today about an egregious but a solvable problem. And we brought some slides, and we'll go through those quickly, but really what I want to do is just speak from the heart. We are not homeless experts. We are not homeless veteran experts. We're merely a group of people who have agreed to be obsessively obedient in answering a call to do our life's work to house our homeless veterans. Depending on what data you look at, there are up to 37,000, perhaps more, homeless veterans in the United States. In the state of Georgia, while the data is in conflict and the support for it thin, there's probably 600 to 2,600 homeless veterans in the state of Georgia. We are based here in Georgia, and Georgia is our #1 launch, but as Mr. Chairman said, we're ultimately aspiring to build 450 of these bases across the country, because that's what it's going to take to house the 37,000 plus homeless veterans. We're going to run through just a couple of slides to give you an idea of, and these are mixed up a little bit, but the 4 words, because they deserve better, they drive everything that we do, because our veterans who have spent their lives defending the freedoms that we all enjoy, who have sacrificed their lives, have made their commitment to the United States, they deserve better, more so than what we are currently presenting to them. Conceptual slide here is what a base looks like. Our response is going to be, we're going to build 450 of these bases. These bases will house 84 homeless veterans per base. Everything that's on that base is created such that we're going to seek to reinstall a sense of community for our veterans who have lost theirs. There are 84 homes per base. Each of these homes are arranged in 7 squadrons. Every squadron of 12 homes will be surrounded by a squadron activity center. These homes are, you might call tiny homes or modular homes or kit homes, but reimagined. Many of the components of these homes will have 20, 30, and 50-year warranties, and these homes are built to last. We are the only organization that we're aware of in the United States that exists for the sole purpose of providing affordable, permanent housing for our veterans. Most of the organizations that are providing a response to homelessness in the United States are transition or temporary housing. The VA in 2022 had a stated objective to allow veterans to age in place and to move away from a dormitory or bunk bed style response. Our response allows veterans not only to live in an independent home of their own, but our expectation is that our veterans will ultimately be able to own their homes. So we're seeking to create a program where veterans can go from homeless to home ownership within a period of years. On our base will be a number of amenities, as you see on the right-hand side. The community center, the larger building on the right, that community center will house on the right wing a health services center where we'll invite the VA to bring a series of doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners to the base, treat 84 veterans at one time versus 84 veterans having to make an appointments at a VA medical center, oftentimes hours away, months in advance, only to be told that they have to come back at some point in time in the future. If the VA chooses not to take advantage of our offer, then we'll employ third-party health providers who will be able to treat our veterans, and then we'll bill the VA for the services. On the left side of that is the Training and Career Center. The Training and Career Center will allow companies from that community to come in and teach our veterans skills, teach our veterans how to prepare for job opportunities within that community. And allow them to ultimately, to those who are employable, to regain a sense of employment and regain a sense of responsibility. In the atrium there will be a commissary, there'll be a gathering location, and then the center can be used as a multi-purpose center for weddings, gatherings, church services, things of that nature. This is just an example. As you see, the picture on the right is our squadron up close. Our homes, our single homes are 18 by 18 with an 8 by 18 covered porch. Some people say, well, why a tiny home? We'd love to provide our veterans, and we feel they deserve a 3,000 square foot home. But from a cost perspective, this is what we feel is what is affordable. But we're taking this and expanding not only from the 4 walls that they'll live in. The Squadron Activity Center will allow them to have an expansion of their home. And the Squadron Activity Center will give an opportunity for those 12 veterans in that squadron to meet, share a meal together, watch the Super Bowl, cook out, play cornhole, etc. there in the Squadron Activity Center. And the entire center, or the entire base, is organized such that they'll be able to take advantage of the walking paths. You'll see there, if you go back, see there in the middle, this section here is Veterans Park with Flag Hill in the middle. The United States flag will fly proudly in the center with all the military flags flanking those on each side. That just to the right of those, with the rectangular areas, our bases will provide commercial gardens where our veterans will be trained to grow area-specific vegetables, seedlings, herbs, be able to sell those to the local restaurants and local residents, give them a sense of belonging, plus it's very therapeutic. In addition, one of our base hallmarks will be our veterans will be trained to train service dogs for other veterans who are battling PTSD and other matters where a service dog or a companion dog would be very appropriate for them. In order to meet the need, traditional building systems are not going to be viable. Beginning in 2024, we're going to need to build 84 homes a week in order to keep up with the needs. So we have designed, and we're working with our designers to create a home system that can be built in a factory environment off-site 363 days a year, take Christmas and Easter off, in order to be able to send these sections of homes to a base where they can be erected in a short period of time so that we can build as many bases as possible in the shortest period of time. So another view of the squadron itself. We have been blessed to have a number of national organizations come along beside us, Stop Soldier Suicide being the most preeminent suicide prevention organization in the country. How homelessness leads to hopelessness, and hopelessness creates a whole host of other challenges, including suicidal ideations. You and I enjoy the comfort of a home. Even on our bad days, we get to go home and we have a roof over our head and we have a bed to sleep in. Our homeless veterans are sleeping under our bridges and sleeping in our woods. I met with a homeless veteran several months ago right behind a Chick-fil-A, right off of a main thoroughfare across the street from a hospital, so a very populated area. And in the woods behind this Chick-fil-A was about a half acre of a homeless camp. And as I was speaking to one of our homeless veterans who was a combat medic in the Vietnam War, it was hard for me to focus on what he was saying because his skin was literally peeling off of his face due to sun exposure. So it doesn't take much to inspire us. Derek and I neither had the opportunity to serve, but this is our opportunity to serve. And as I mentioned earlier, our desire to be obsessive obedient to the call that we have agreed to answer is what drives us. We're about to, while we are pursuing each and every element of funding, whether it be through grants, whether it be through private donations, we have come to the conclusion over the now 3 years that we've been working on this. And to the extent that you're interested, I'll tell you all the backstory one day on a personal level. But we've concluded that we can't wait on our government to do what needs to be done. And I mean no disrespect by that. So we are about to embark on a campaign called Operation Because They Deserve Better. Operation Because They Deserve Better is going to appeal to the American patriot, you, I, our neighbors, to give a nominal donation to Mighty Hero Homes such that we can take advantage of a generous match program. So before I leave here today, I'm going to ask each one of you individually to participate in this program. And what we're seeking to do is have 1 million Americans give a one-time $100 donation. I've yet to be told to someone who I know has the ability, I've yet to ask them for a $100 donation, and they've said no. So we're seeking to have 100 American patriots to give a one-time $100 donation in 100 days. That'll be record-setting, it'll be unprecedented. We're seeking some public figures, not to name drop, but we're seeking public figures that can help us spread the word as quickly as possible. By raising $100 million in 100 days, that's going to qualify us for a 3-to-1 match opportunity so that we'll receive $300 million from a generous group of benefactors out of Texas. We can replicate that program 3 additional times. So by us raising $100 million through our Operation Because They Deserve Better, we ultimately will have $1.2 billion, which will allow us to permanently house 6,720 homeless veterans across the country. So before I leave today, I'm going to ask each one of you to go to our website, go to our donate page, and make a one-time $100 donation to Operation Because They Deserve Better. Our campaign is under development right now. We've employed who we believe to be are the most prolific marketing folks in our area in order to help us spread the word so that we can raise the funds. I wish I had the ability to continue to fund this program, but it's all of our issues. We all owe a debt of gratitude to our homeless veterans, and we believe that we're being obedient by asking our American patriots to join along beside us to answer, again, this egregious stain on our country's history, but it is solvable. The only solution to veteran homelessness is to provide homes. From 2010 to 2020, the U.S. government spent $10 billion on veteran homelessness, and that bought a lot of websites, pamphlets, hotlines, but what it failed to do, it didn't build a single home for a single homeless veteran. So that is why we exist. We want your support, and however that may manifest. We are working at the state level, the federal level. We've met with many U.S. representatives and U.S. senators. We're Brian Strickland, whom I know you all know, is our corporate attorney. A great, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Senator Brian Strickland is our legal counsel and a friend of Mighty Hero Homes, and we are blessed to have him on our team. So we would ask you to consider how you can help us. We'd love to give you more information on a personal level if there's interest. Our contact information is on our website, and I can certainly leave you some information here.
You do have a couple of questions. Can you go back one slide? Hey, in full disclosure, that top right there, that's me. So Raylan, that's how I heard about them originally. They're not asking for any money from the state, but I wanted to bring them in so that when somebody brings their name up, you can say, yeah, I've actually heard about that. Here's what they're doing. Okay, Senator Kirkpatrick.
Thank you for being here, and I would love to meet with you after the session and get answers to a whole bunch of questions that I have. But
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
one question is, there's another organization that I've been working with in town called Tunnel to Towers, and their model's slightly different, but they are in the process of looking for property around the metro area because most of the homeless veterans in Georgia, not all, but most, are around the metro area. And so I didn't know if you all are working together or in competition, or, I mean, I know there are a lot of people working in this area in different aspects, and I just was wondering where in Georgia you're looking to start.
Yes, we have met with Tunnels to Towers. Their model is different than ours. But anyone that's doing work in this space, we consider a friend, a colleague, and resource. There is no competition for us in this space. In terms of where we're looking, we feel like there's probably the opportunity to install 8 to 10 bases in Georgia. We would like to ideally be around the VA medical centers, although we'll provide transportation through base vehicles to get veterans to the VA medical center. We want them to be as close as possible. So Macon, Dublin, Augusta, Metro Atlanta area are our primary target spots for base locations. Yes, ma'am.
You said that. Thank you. Because I need all the help I can get. So you said, using your community center, that there are some services that you will provide that you will bill the VA for. What are those services?
They would be on-site medical assistance. While we would not treat mental challenges there, medications, thyroid medications, diabetes medications, things of that nature, normal checkups, things that can be done in a fully equipped medical facility that we would equip on the base. We hope to be able to done there rather than have to have our veterans travel to a VA medical center.
So my second question, Mr. Chair, what would be the qualifications to live there? What are the qualifications, and who will help you manage the property?
Yes, ma'am. Any veteran that served in any capacity whatsoever is eligible to move on to a Mighty Hero home base. We will primarily take referrals from the VA and the many veteran-centric organizations across the country who get tens, if not hundreds, of calls a week from persons who are either homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. Right now, the answer is to send them to some of the locations that are temporary or transition and hope it works out. But we will provide a location for these folks to be able to come, move in, and never have to move until they choose to.
Last question, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So you said you guys did not get the opportunity to serve. Was it medical, or did you not take the opportunity to serve? Which one is it? Because get and take is two different things.
Yes, ma'am. My plan B was the Air Force. If I didn't get a chance
Smart.
to play college
Smart.
football, I did get a chance to play college football.
Okay.
I took advantage of that opportunity, but this is my time to serve.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
How many square feet are these homes?
The individual home is 264, 18 by 18. The family unit is 18 by 36, which will be a 2-bedroom, which would allow up to 4 persons to live there. So a single mother with 3 children, or a single father with children, or a husband and wife team, or just 2 friends who choose to live together will be able to live in the family unit.
And the larger one is how much?
648 square feet.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and 324 for the small, the Freedom Fighter.
And the squadron activity centers are 1,600 square feet, the unit right in the middle of the cluster.
All right. Any other questions? Thank y'all for coming in. I appreciate it. Like I said, I just wanted everybody to hear this. some of the programs that are cropping up out there to help our homeless veteran population.
Thank you, sir.
If there are no
Mr.
further
Chairman.
questions, we're adjourned.
Thanks, Chairman.